I'm really excited because I love featuring entrepreneurs in here, but I really love featuring people who are doing it a little bit differently and also who got in the game early with things like blogging, which you did. So it's amazing to speak to you about this because we're going to talk all about how it's changed, maybe things that you learned, and then also just your journey.
I mean, it's a long, long story, but basically, I have had a blog for over 12 years now, and people were sort of jumping on the bandwagon, not really knowing what blogging could do for them. And then over those years, it's kind of grown and grown and grown and grown. And now I've reached a point, and we can talk about this in more detail in a bit, but now I've reached a point where I kind of feel a bit more confident in myself, I guess. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I have achieved these wonderful, great things, and I can help others achieve this too. And it's that wanting to share and impart my knowledge for other people. People that were like me back then, a mum of 2 young children wanting to get back in the game. So people like that, but also small businesses that are just kicking off and they've heard the term blogging but don't really know how it can help their business. And trust me, it really, really can. And I think it's sort of tapping into those people and just trying to help them really understand a bit more about blogging.
Because I think blogging is one of those, as you said, it often starts as a hobby, but then it's the question of how do you make it a real nurture vehicle of your business? How do you make it into creating community? And you've had 12 years to experiment and figure that out. Whereas I think a lot of people start a blog. I've been here too. They do maybe a year or two and then they kind of tap out, either because they don't see the growth they wanted, they didn't figure out how to monetize it, it's a lot of work. They don't really get that formula, which we'll chat about today. You had young kids, you were getting back into things, but what was the moment of, I need to do this specifically?
I mean, some people may say it's a little bit cheaty, the way that I came into blogging. So, my husband is in the kind of digital marketing field. When I had first had the kids, I was a stay at home mum. I used to work in London, but I very much wanted to stay at home with the kids. But they reached a certain age, they started going to school, and I was like, hold on a minute. I love this mum thing, but I am also more than a mum. And I started to crave what I had before. I needed something for me, but to be there for them. Now, I mentioned my husband because his work at the time involved building websites up for people. And through that, he would buy lots of different little blogs and websites, and they would be used to build up his big client websites. And I became a little bit of a content writer for some of these. They were called PBNs. And I can't remember what that stands for, but they were basically like little support websites for building up the big client ones. And so I took some of those on board. They were not making money. They were already set up, but they had no branding on them. They were just purely content driven. And I would write the content for those. And one of those was my blog that I have now. And I started writing on it and I thought, hang on a minute, this has got some legs here. I think I can take this further than it just being this pretty pointless site. So I took it and I started doing all the content on it myself. I wrote everything. I didn't have anyone else helping me. I would just write about things. I was into fitness, so I'd be writing about that. I loved writing. As a kid, I wanted to be a writer. It was just in me that that's what I wanted to do. I was that teenager that was writing diaries and all the things like that. So this was a great outlet for me to get that writing out of me. And then all of a sudden, I just started getting traffic was growing. I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't checking traffic numbers, anything like that. I was just writing, writing, writing as much as I could. And the next thing I know, I'm suddenly getting emails because an email address must have been set up at some point, product reviews to begin with saying, oh, we really like what you've done here. If we send you our products, can you do a review of them? And to me at the time, that was the most flattering thing that anyone could have, I wasn't being paid for it, but oh my gosh, they wanted to send me some coconut oil to review. I was like, whoa, I've made it. This is incredible. I'd publish it. And of course, when I did that, I could tag that brand. And all of a sudden, I was latching onto their audience as well. And so my numbers started to grow. And then it wasn't just product reviews that I was getting emails about. I was suddenly getting PR companies and ad brands and stuff like that. And I had no idea what to charge. I was like, do I go in high? Will that put them off? So over the years, obviously, I've increased my rates, but it just took off from there and it grew and grew into something that still blows my mind that I have managed to do that. And you calling me an entrepreneur at the beginning, I was like, me? Am I an entrepreneur? And it has been more successful than I could ever have dreamt.
Isn't it funny how all of the creative entrepreneurs never think of themselves as entrepreneurs? I mean, you're
Maybe so.
exchanging money, and if anything, actually, like, you're mastering passive income, which is one of the hardest things to set up, and just by nature of creating this platform, sharing audiences with bigger brands and bigger people, and I really think that that is the magic, like, if you
Yeah.
can tap into someone else's audience, it just helps so much, and you did that really, really well. How long do you think it was from the point that you took over this blog and said, "Okay, I'm gonna make this my own," to the point where you started getting approached for the product reviews? Do you remember what that timeline was?
Yeah, I would say definitely in the first year, but that probably was also because I was sharing stuff. It's hard to remember, but I think I was probably tagging companies or products that I just had around the house as well. So then you kind of get on people's radar a little bit that way.
And you were doing it early days too, like, you tapped into that trend early because now people understand to do this kind of thing, but when you were doing it, that was completely, wild, wild west. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, it was like new territory, and yeah, there's no mistake that it is definitely harder these days to do that, and you do have to change what you're doing. There's no doubt about it. I don't think that was a job. I remember like people asking me what I did all those years ago, and I was embarrassed to say that I was a blogger because it's like, well, that's not a job. How can you be that? That's just like some housewife hobby. Like,
And now it's so funny because that's kind of like the more revered of the digital things now. Being a blogger means something quite a bit more than, for example, if you're trying to be an influencer, which I'm not knocking shade to it, but in terms of how people think about it, if you say I'm a blogger that's successful, that means something. Do you remember when you first started getting those product reviews? First question is, what was your current audience then like? And then what do you think it was that brought them to your site?
what brought them to my site and what brought them back, I think is the way I write. Like I have a very sort of storyteller way of writing, kind of a little bit the way that I speak as well. So I use a lot of slang in my writing, sometimes make mistakes in my writing, just as we might trip up and go a lot or put the word like in a lot. I would include that in my writing. So it makes it feel a bit more relatable to people. And I am nothing but honest in my posts. I'm sure you've read some, haven't you? And I tell it how I've got no filter. I tell it how I think it is. And people really like that. It makes them connect with you a lot more and makes you it's that kind of whole know like trust factor. People they feel like you're their friend. And so they learn a lot about you and they end up liking you and then they trust you. And so they come back because they believe that what you're saying is true, which it is.
This is where I wanna make 2 notes. One is to definitely go check out your site, Art of Healthy Living, because I think there's some really good insights on how to write that can have this more conversational tone that people want. Are so tired of the polished crap. But also, you were a guest on my first podcast, Feel Good Naked, and that episode still is one of the highest downloaded ones, even compared to people who've come on the show with millions of followers. So I think there's something to say about why does that happen? It's the ability to relate, the storytelling.
Yeah.
As you said, to a certain degree, and this is like such a shocker when people think about it, numbers don't matter. If you can do a good job of telling your story and connecting with brands or people, doesn't matter. It really doesn't at all.
Mhm. I mean, you could have millions of followers, but if you're not telling the right story, only a very small percentage of those will actually connect in the right way. Whereas you could have just a handful of followers, but if you are connecting with a high percentage of them and you're not selling to them, you are storytelling them, that's way better.
You want them to say, like, things like, "How can I work with you?" Not feeling that it's always shoved down their throats what you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think in terms of if you're thinking about using a blog in your business, it is very hard not to sell to people because of course that's what you've been doing all this time. But really the key is if you can use your blog to build those customer relations and to build those connections with your customers, that's where the magic is.
The sneaker selling, well, I will definitely come back to that because I think that there's something to that the more natural, organic way to persuade people. What is it that and I don't know how much you do this because this is kind of an honest question from I don't know if this matters or not, but how much in the beginning and now has SEO, the back stuff, things like that mattered?
It does. Things like keywords are pretty crucial to getting the content right and making sure that it's getting in the right places. I guess the key to finding those keywords is say you are writing a blog post about dogs. Everyone under the sun is going to be featuring the word dogs. Yeah? But what if you were talking about rescue dogs? You'd still need to niche down further. What about if you were training rescue dogs? What about if you were training rescue dogs some kind of issue or something? It's about niching down. So something that is still popular enough to want for people to want to go and search for it, but not so popular that everyone is searching for it and you're just lost in an ocean of other people's articles.
This is a really good example because I'm also thinking about how, and this we definitely got to talk about how the world is shifting with all the Google changes and with AI, etc. Can you give an example with, let's talk about like wellness, for example? Because a lot of people listening, they'll want to do a wellness blog as you've done. What would be a wellness topic that we could kind of take through this more niching down keyword?
I mean, I used to always do this thing around about September time where I would be looking forward to the trends of the following year. So I'd always write a post, wellness trends for 2025, and I'd put a few other things in there to make it stand out. So you were already ahead of the game of everyone else. Someone else will have done it already, by the way. But if you do a search and you can draw like research from other people, put it in your own words and put your keywords in there. And I tell you what, actually, Pinterest trends is a good one to search. They will have things way in advance that you can kind of take little things from. And so I would do that for the wellness bit of my blog. So September, we're about 3, 4 months ahead of the year going out. And you're already starting to rank before we've even hit 2025.
This is very good because for anyone listening, not just for blogs, but if you have a podcast, this is smart. If you, for social media, this is smart. It's really funny to me because I think about how people say that blogging, for example, takes too much time. But then I think about how much time we spend on social media for posts that are just thrown away in 24
Yeah.
hours.
On social media, it doesn't even belong to us. Like, what if that platform suddenly goes, all of our content gone, literally gone, and yet we're willing to spend so many hours like bearing our souls on there? Why are we not just taking that and putting it on a blog instead?
Honestly, because when I think about that, I think someone said to me recently how they think that Facebook is becoming the next Craigslist in terms of the decline. What do you think about the changes? Because you've been doing it for 12 years. What about the technological changes that have happened in the space and in the way, like, how have you adapted to that? Or what would you tell someone is important to think about if they're just now starting their blog or reviving it?
Let's touch on the whole AI thing because obviously that is a concern. And there is a school of thought that is like, well, why bother spending my time writing stuff, especially if you're not a natural writer, when you can get something to do a pretty good job for you? I feel like it has a place. Like if you're someone who's struggling to come up with ideas and things like that, it's a great prompt. Honestly, I can still tell the difference between a piece of AI written content versus something that I've written. It's just, there's just not that same connection and passion that a human can put into it. Now, I'm not saying that in a few years time that may change and that may be the case, but at the moment, it isn't proving a problem to me.
Use the tool, but don't depend on the tool. So you can use the tool to brainstorm. I do that for podcasts as well. I think it's really helpful. Outlining, I like it too for refining. You know, you give it a piece of content you've written and then say, here, update this, refine this, add stuff, etc.
Polishes it, right?
Polish it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But then that's just like having it's like having an intern, right?
yeah.
You're not having your intern write for you because they can't be trusted yet.
Exactly that. Yeah, exactly that. There's no way they're getting near my baby. That's mine.
They need a few years to develop before they
Yeah,
do that, but there's no reason why they can't do some of the tasks that maybe take your time, sap your creativity, maybe give you a second opinion on stuff as well. I know one of the prompts that a friend uses is she'll say to ChatGPT, "Can you pretend that you are or act as a world-class editor and review this for continuity, tone, etc." There was that initial rush to be in that camp of I'm not writing anything, forget blogs, forget all this, abandon, to now, ooh, that love affair is starting to get a little bit more reality. And we see that there are some holes missing there, and that it doesn't take away from the fact, like you said, that you own a blog. You own that community, you own that content, it is forever yours. So different from if you're building on a third party, but how would you do it now? Like if you, because I know this is something that you're getting more into now, is helping other people really launch and make their blogs thrive. What would you say are the most, let's say, 3 important things to think about now if you're starting your blog?
you have got to be the most patient person on earth because you are not going to be making your millions overnight, no matter what someone tells you. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are like, oh, look, I've made all this money and it's taken me hardly any time at all. That's rubbish. It takes time, it takes hard work, and it takes a lot of consistent writing. You need content going up there all the time. And you have to be patient. It's very, I know tons of people that have got frustrated with it, thrown the towel in, and just let it go. And, it could have been another week and that could have changed. You just don't know. So that would be the one thing. The second thing I would say is email newsletters. They are massive, and that wasn't really a thing when I first started. I think I had one, but it didn't really do much. It was just there because I felt like I should have one. And again, by doing that, those contacts are yours. You can speak directly to your people. Thirdly, I would also say, so I know we've spoken about social media, but it has its place still.
I like that for the I think it's really good for conversations. I agree with you. I think social media is great for conversations with people that are your peers or your target audience. But I think these are really good suggestions because one, also the thing about the patience, that's for anything you're creating. I know people who are like, oh, I'm gonna go monetize on YouTube now. I'm gonna go launch my best podcast and get in the top 20. Like this stuff
Oh,
takes
if it was as
time.
easy as that.
No, it takes time. It really takes time. Before that discourages people, you also want to think about, well, everyone pretty much acknowledges right now that it's worth having a newsletter, having an email list, and it's worth having some post on social media. So if you're already doing that content writing, is it a big deal to repurpose a blog or to add a blog into that already? I feel like you can kind of go across platforms. I don't know if you've done that a bit.
Let's face it, this all takes time throughout our day, and it takes way more time than you imagine that it would to create a piece of content. So actually, what you're best off doing is having your blog first and foremost, and you've written a lengthy blog post. You've got so much content in that blog post, so you can take snippets of that, like quotes from it, and repurpose that, whatever the blog post is about. That's your weekly topic of conversation in your newsletter. Because let's not forget, when you just because you've posted something doesn't mean all of those X amount of followers is seeing your content, because we all know Facebook is a pain in the backside and will not show everything to all of your people. The more you can push it out down your different streams, the better, because then you have a much better chance of actually hitting a higher percentage of people reading what you have written.
It's interesting your take on this because I know that you were saying the analytics you're not looking at so much, but I do feel like there's so much wealth of information there that you can see. Because when you post something on social media, for example, and you don't get engagement, you don't know if that's because the post was bad or if because enough people didn't see it or the right people didn't see it. You don't get those analytics, right? You have no idea. But with blogging, you can kind of see that, can't you? You can see how many people clicked, how long did they stay, did they move away, like where did they go to the next page? And even if you're not going to spend all your time analyzing it, which I wouldn't, you still know, right? Like you know where you're losing
You
people and how
still
you can
know, yeah.
improve.
And you can see, so I get something, it's like connected to Google Search Console, which has all these like analytics on it. And I could spend ages on there if I wanted, but I can't be bothered. But every week I think I get an email sent from them and it will tell me like my highest ranking posts or the keywords that are people looking for. Now that is useful information because I'll look at that and I think, okay, so what I've written in that one, people are obviously really wanting to search for. And can I do another one sort of centered around it a little bit, but change it slightly? And that is valuable.
I like that. That gives you like it could be such a small slight change that people were looking for. Like let's say you were writing something on in the fitness category. You were writing about I don't know, like winter sports or something. And that's not hitting. But then you realize when you focus specifically on skiing for cardio and XYZ age of your life, you're like, "Oh, there we go." It's almost as if, blogging in the past people have thought about it as that's your only business, and I know for you, you did that, you created that. I also think you can use it as a way to really grow and refine your business and really understand your customers in a way that is kinda hard with anything else.
It opens up so many different doors to reach not just your existing customers, but new ones as well.
I don't think people are using blogs the way like, for this next stage of online business. I don't feel like they're using them that way yet. I see that you did it very early, but I think it's also, like, even something small where if you want to everyone is all about these cold DMs, which I hate.
You don't want to just, like you said, you don't want to just get these messages from complete randoms and think, well, who the hell are you? Like, why are you sending me this stuff? Because you don't trust it and you think, right, you're sending me this now, in a minute, you're going to try and sell me something. I know that you are after my money, so I'm not going to go down that path of clicking on your link because people are wary of clicking on links as well.
Yeah, people are smart now. Even open-ended messages like, "Hey," I get these like, "Hey, Sade, tell me about your business." I'm like, delete.
I still get emails sent to me where they haven't even bothered to read my name. So I'll get, "Hi, sir." And I'm just like, straight away, you are gone.
If we talk about starting a blog now, whether it's going to be someone's eventual full time thing or they want to use it to grow their business, whatever that might be, what would you advise differently? What are some of the big mistakes you see people making that you think are really important to know about from the beginning?
So I think it's really, so I should imagine if it's, say, like a small business wanting to put a blog, wanting to get into blogging. What is tricky is that a lot of people that would start writing probably have no experience of writing at all. And then let's not even get onto the SEO side of things yet. That's like gonna blow your mind. So I think it's really important, probably firstly, to know who your audience is because it's not about what you want to write, certainly if it's for your business anyway. It's not about what you want to write, it's about what your audience want to read. And so say you've got a business selling flowers, is it that they want to read about your business? Probably not. That's what you would like to write about, but that's not really what they want to read about. They want to read about what flowers are in season or how they can grow flowers successfully in their garden. So that's the kind of content that you're going to be wanting to write. So spending time in those early days really researching your readers and writing down a whole profile of who your ideal reader is will just help you then be able to continue from that point.
Understanding your audience for anything you do. I think even if you're writing a social media post, really knowing who is this person, what are their fears, their desires, like going beyond just the simple demographic. Oh, I target women above age 30. Like really knowing that person.
Blogging can be quite self-indulgent at times, I would say. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I think it's good to have a mixture of writing what you love and your opinions of things versus, like I said, about what people want to read. Because that whole writing about what you love, that's how you get your personality across and your voice across. But you need a mixture of both in order to make it work.
What do you think are the best ways to monetize your blog? Because I think a lot of people get the idea that the best way is through traffic and you have the ads on the site. But I don't know if that's the best way. If there's other ways, what makes more sense?
I do actually have a free ebook that will tell you all of the ways. You can find it at learn.blogwell.co.uk. All of the ways. There are lots of ways. I know many people are like, "What? I thought it was just adverts and affiliates maybe." But there are countless ways you can make money from blogging.
There's the way that everyone says to do it, which is, or what you see, the lot of ads. That's true for podcasting too.
Mm.
People think that you make money from podcasting through ads. It's not true for most people. And it is annoying. Everyone skips them, they don't like them. But there's other ways, right? And I think also in that case, affiliates is a good starter one. If you wanna get cash in the door, you've got some affiliates you trust, that's a really good way, and it can supplement your business.
You only really want to be promoting stuff that you would like yourself.
I had a funny story with this where I had this company early days send me a product because, as you know, we met when I was a trainer as in the fitness world. I'm not gonna say the name of it. All I'm gonna say is that I got this contraption, is all I can say, which looked like a corset almost with little rubber
Oh.
bands that had resistance. And I put this contraption on and I just thought to myself, I can't believe that I have to create exercises for this when I can barely move.
And yet then you're expected to write, "Yeah, this is amazing. I would definitely go out and buy this." This
You wanna be careful. Something sounds interesting on paper, but not in reality. So I know that you're getting ready to really teach and help people with blogging, and that's in the works. In the meantime, how can people connect with you and also hear updates on that? What are the different ways?
So obviously I mentioned my ebook.
Yeah.
I have a new website for my new business that it's called Blogwell, blogwell.co.uk. Just heading over there will point you in the right direction. And of course, my actual main blog, as you mentioned earlier, is artofhealthyliving.com. So you can connect with me on there as well.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom, little backstory of the OG for blogging.
Yep.